Shalom, shalom. Put sevens in the chat if you can hear me. All praises. Put sevens in the chat. Shalom, Sister Justice, Sis Liz, all praises. My brother Brandon. Good to see everybody. We got a good one today, y'all. Got a good one. Happy Sabbath to everybody. I hope everybody's having a well-rested, beautiful Sabbath night, man. Sister Jemiah, shalom to our beautiful Sister Jemiah. Sister Aaliyah, I think that's, how do you say your name? Sister Shanika, I believe that's how you say your name. Forgive me if I say it wrong. Shalom, Sister Shanika. Sister Aaliyah, Brother Victor, my 10 tribe brother, 10 tribe assassin, Brother Victor, Princess E, beautiful Sister Princess E, Sister Jana. Sis, I'm gonna get back in touch with you. I got you. Sister Jana, I got you. I'm gonna get back in touch with you. I got you. I had a busy week. Shamar, shalom, sis. Abigail, shalom to the beautiful family, man. While y'all load up in here. We got a good one today. KJV versus ESV. All right. KJV versus ESV. I want to get right into this. Right. Shalom, Brother Tavon. Good to see everybody, man. How do you say your name, good brother? I think this is a brother. Is it a brother or sister? Kalaya, I think this is a sister. Correct me if I'm wrong. Kalaya, shalom, sis. Oh, praises, my boy Mana. Wow, cherish. Y'all tapping in, man. All praises to everybody that's showing love to BOW, man. All praises, man. Happy to have everybody here. Antonio, you know, everybody, man, everybody. We happy to have y'all here. So today we're gonna go into KJV versus ESV. Now, if anybody been rocking with Ratazan for a long time, you know that Ratazan's primary biblical translation in the English that he uses is the KJV. Okay, my primary go-to is the KJV. All right. Sister Jemiah said, yeah, we got scared straight in General Assembly. Kakan, all praises. I'm happy y'all got scared straight, man. You know, fear is what the scriptures say. Fear is the beginning of knowledge, or something like that. I might be paraphrasing. Fear is the beginning of knowledge, I believe. Something to that extent. Yeah, man. A good, healthy fear is always good. A good, healthy fear is always good. All praises. But if anybody been rocking with me for a long time, you know that I am a big King James KJV enthusiast. I was taught the KJV. I actually came into the knowledge of reading the Bible through the NIV, and when I seen how, you know, despicable that translation was, I kind of went away from that, and I heavily rely on the KJV, right? Heavily rely on the KJV. But I think in time, with everything, you must evolve, right? I believe you must evolve, right? So I'm no longer saying KJV is still the primary translation that I would use, but I'm also adding the ESV in there, okay, for comparative translations. Now, that's not to say that brothers are in sin or are wrong for using any other translation, but what I'm saying today is that the ESV and the KJV, I have verified, and I trust in both of those translations comparatively, right? And I'm going to go through some history. We're going to go through some. I think it's important. All right. I think it's important for everybody to understand what Bible they read. Like, it's good to read the Bible, but you got to also understand, you know, we believe in the Bible. Like, I believe that the Most High God put these words together. I believe that these words are divine. I believe that his Holy Spirit, when you go through the history, his Holy Spirit gathered these books. All right. So I totally believe that. And but I do believe that you have to understand you do have to understand what you're reading, right? This is very important. Like if somebody was to come up to you and ask you why you read the why do you hold to the KJV primarily, or why do you hold to the ESV primarily, you should be able to give them an answer, right? And today I'm going to give you my answer on why I hold to the KJV and the ESV, right? Comparatively, right? So for comparative translation, so if if I want to get a broader understanding of something that is written in more of a poetic style with the KJV, then I'll lean more towards the ESV, right? That's not to say that is my sound off? Is my sound off, you guys? Let me double check and see if my sound is off. Oh, all right. What you just saying a statement? KD, you was just saying a statement. My sound is not off, right, family? My sound is not off, right? I just want to make sure. Can y'all hear me well? Sound good? All right, Con. You know what? Let me turn myself down just a little bit. All right, mic check. 1, 2. I wanted to turn myself down just a little bit. Let me double check and see how I sound. I don't want it to static if I get a little loud. Just a little bit. Let me double check and see how I sound. I don't want it to static if I get a little loud. Okay, cool. We good. Let me turn it down just a little bit more. Mic check. 1, 2. 1, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Mic check. I'm sorry about that, family. Battery died. All right. We back. Man, look at that, man. Battery died. Ain't that crazy? Y'all can hear me now, right? Everybody can hear me now? All right. We good. All right, we back. So, like I was saying, the ESV is more of a direct version of the Bible. But before we go ahead and jump into the ESV and then the KJV and get into the history of why I support the KJV and the ESV, let's go ahead and get some scriptures real quick. And shout out to my good brother Ishire. He gave me a lot of information on this topic. Well studied, brother. It was well put together. So by the end of this, y'all will realize why me as Ratazan primarily, I'm going to now focus on the KJV and the ESV, right? For my translation that I actually lean towards. I think Divine Prospect also leans more so to the ESV, and he accepts the KJV as well. I'm kind of going towards the Divine Prospect route. I like the ESV, man. I love how it reads, and I've also researched the history on how we even got the translation that we got. So we're gonna get into it. But the first thing I want to do is I want to let's go to Sirach, right? The prologue, right? Let's go to Sirach, the prologue, and I'm gonna read that. All right. So that's in your red book. If you got your Apocrypha, that's page 70. And I want to read this before we get into this lesson. So this is the prologue. All right. Wisdom of Solomon, the book of Sirach, right? So it says, whereas many and great things have been delivered unto us by the law and the prophets and by others that have followed their steps. For the which things Israel ought to be commanded for learning and wisdom, and whereof not only the readers must needs become skillful themselves, but also they that desire to learn be able to profit them which are without. So as a studier, you got to be skillful too. You got to be skillful in what you're reading, right? You don't just want to just pick up a book because your favorite teacher has it or whatever. You want to make sure you're skillful in what you're reading, not just the contents that's inside of the Bible, but you want to understand the actual book that you're reading and where the actual book came from. You want to know as much as you can about the actual book itself, right? Whatever translation you choose to read, right? So the reader must become skillful, right? You have to become skillful with these things. So you can always give an answer of why you choose this over that, or if somebody tries to say the Bible is written by a white man or the Bible has been corrupted or whatever people try to say about the holy text, you have to know why and how we are reading the text that we're reading and how the compilement of the books that we have, how they were compiled together. That is very, very important. So it says, and wherefore not only the readers must needs become skillful themselves, but also they that desire to learn be able to profit them which are without, both by speaking and writing, right? So it says, my grandfather Jesus, this is not Jesus Christ, but this is another Jesus, right? When he had much given himself to the reading of the law and the prophets and other books of our fathers, and had gotten there in good judgment, was drawn to write something pertaining to learning and wisdom, to the intent that those which are desirous to learn and are addicted to these things might profit much more in living according to the law. Wherefore let me entreat you to read it with favor and attention, and to pardon us wherein we may seem to come short of some words which we have labored to interpret. So interpretations are very, very hard, right? It's not easy to interpret one manuscript in original language to another language, right? That's a difficult task, and we're going to see how difficult that was, right? So yes, interpretations or translations, I should say, are prone to errors, right? There are errors, that we can find, right? Maybe not in the overall contextual story, right? Because we know the story is all cohesive. That's what makes the Bible itself one of the most dynamic books in the world, is because all of these different manuscripts, over 5,000 Greek manuscripts and over 12 to 16,000 Latin manuscripts, right? And then your various Hebrew manuscripts that you have, they all tell one complete story. So that is amazing. And these manuscripts are dated to be written in different times. So there's no other book, right? Okay, Khan, I'm gonna send you the link. Let me get my good brother Shire on here real quick. Let me hold that thought, family. All right, let me go ahead and all right, Shire, go ahead and hit that link. Go ahead and hit that link, Ashire. So, like I was saying, there, when you translate something and you have to be tedious with it, right? And a lot of times, a lot of these things are translated from like manuscripts and scrolls that are missing pages. Some might be cut in half, right? You might have to piece things together. Like how we got our holy text today was nothing short of miraculous. And that's just to be loosely with it. You know what I mean? It was very miraculous how we actually got our translation, right? So this is what the prologue is saying. It's saying, that you have to read it with favor. Let me go back up. Let's start at verse, not verse, but wherefore let me entreat you to read it with favor and attention, and to pardon us wherein we may seem to come short of some words which we have labored to interpret. For the same things uttered in Hebrew and translated into another tongue have not the same force in them. And not only these things, but the law itself and the prophets and the rest of the books have no small difference when they are spoken in their own language. For in 30th year coming into Egypt. Okay, so that's all we need there. That's all we need. Well, actually, no. Let me keep reading. in 30th year coming into Egypt, when Irrigates was king, and the continuing there some time, I found a book of no small learning. Therefore, I thought it most necessary for me to bestow some diligence and travail to interpret it, using great watchfulness and skill in that space to bring the book to an end, and set it forth for them also, which in strange country are willing to learn, being prepared before in manners to live after the law. So the Bible is very, very, very interesting because it took skill to give us what we have today, and not only skill from the person that translates it, but also skill from the person that is reading it, because the text is prone to errors. When I say prone to errors, I'm not saying errors in the sense of the contextual story and the narrative that the Bible is trying to convey throughout the text. When I say errors, I'm talking about errors in the sense like it might be grammatical errors or so on or so forth, right? That we're actually going to dive into dealing with the ESV and the KJV, right? That's why I'm not against comparative translations. My go-to comparative translations from here on out will be the KJV and the ESV, right? So I bring that scripture out just to let you know the Most High is letting you know that this thing is very tedious, and it takes skill to interpret these things, and it also takes skill to read these things, right? So let's go to 2 Kings, right? Not only that, but let's get 2 Kings real quick. Another reason why this book is actually one of the greatest books on the face of the planet, whether you believe in the Most High or not, that's just facts, right? Because this book has been destroyed throughout the centuries, right? The manuscripts that this book comes from have purposely been destroyed. A lot of them, right? Purposely been destroyed. And even books that came after the manuscripts were purposely destroyed, right? By people trying to keep this knowledge out of the hands of the believers of the Most High, right? His children. But the Most High said his word will never return void. So it's no way that they will ever be able to get rid of this text from the world. But it has been attempts to do so. But we're not even talking about just with our enemies like Esau and so on and so forth. We're also talking about our own people attempted to destroy the books of the law, right? We're going to read that right here. So let's get 2 Kings chapter 22. Wicked kings attempted to do this. 2 Kings chapter 22, and I'm going to read verse 8. All right. So it says, and Hilkiah the high priest said unto Shaphan the scribe, right? I have found the book of the law in the house of the Lord. And Hilkiah gave the book to Shaphan, and he read it. So at this time, right, our book was lost, meaning we were in a complete darkness. You know, this is a time during the time of the kings where we went from righteous to wicked, from righteous to wicked. So it would be, we would go long periods of time in different time periods of not having our law. We wouldn't have our laws. I'm going to show y'all today just how amazing this book is. Today, I'm going to show you this book is an amazing book when you go back and you study the history of what this book has been through. So we had times where we wasn't even, we couldn't even find our law. Our law was lost, right? So Hilkiah, actually, the high priest found the books of the law, right? And he gave it to Shaphan, right, which was a scribe. And let's see what they had to do. So verse 9, and Shaphan the scribe came to the king and brought the king word again and said, thy servants have gathered the money that was found in the house and have delivered it into the hand of them that do the work, that have the oversight of the house of the Lord. And Shaphan the scribe showed the king, saying, Hilkiah the priest has delivered me a book. And Shaphan read it before the king, right? So they actually found the book by accident. They found the law by accident. So now let's see what happened. And the king commanded Hilkiah the priest and Achim the son of Shaphan and Achbor the son of Machai, and Shaphan, the scribe, and Asaiah, a servant of the king's, saying, Go ye, inquire of the Lord for me and for the people and for all Judah concerning the words of this book that is found. For great is the wrath of the Lord that is kindled against us, because our fathers have not hearkened unto the words of this book, to do according unto all that which is concerning us. Y'all see that? So the book was lost. We found the book, and now we're about to reinstitute the book, meaning we're going to have the scribes to rewrite the book, to re-prescribe the book. So you see this narrative even played out in biblical chronology, where our fathers and our forefathers had times in the scriptures where this book was lost. So this is centuries ago, right? This is how powerful. There's no greater book than the Bible. This was centuries ago, right? Where we went through the Bible went through so much hell, in a sense, that the fact that it's here and able to be here is nothing short of the Most High Spirit, right? So, let's go to Hosea chapter 4, verse 6. So you'll see that when you read the history of the kings, that in some cases we had our forefathers that were wicked, that forsook the laws of Moses. And when they forsook the laws of Moses, they literally lost the law of Moses, and it was no more. So, they had to go find it, dust it off, right? And have the scribes to retranslate the holy word for us, right? This is Hosea chapter 4, verse 6. It says, My people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge, because thou hast rejected knowledge. I will also reject thee, that thou shalt be no priest to me, seeing thou hast forgotten the law of thy God. I will also forget thy children. So our people went through times of literally forgetting the Bible, forgetting the law, literally, to the point where they mentally forgot it, but they also physically lost it and forgot it. And we had times in history where these things were found, books were found, books of the law were found, the letters and the writings of the prophets were found, and then they were commissioned by righteous kings. I think that was Hezekiah. I believe that was Hezekiah, that previous king we were reading about, when Hilkiah the priest actually found the books of the law and had the books of the law actually reestablished, right? So our people, right, not only were the books destroyed by our enemies, but our people also had their hand in forgetting the law and having it put out of remembrance in a physical manner, right? So let's go from there. Let's go to Jeremiah chapter 36. Let's get an example of that. Jeremiah chapter 36. So this book is nothing short of amazing. I mean, like I said, it's no greater book than the one that you have in your hand. Thousands of years of history compacted and abridged with over thousands of manuscripts, right? And being able to translate so we can read it today. That's the spirit of the Most High. Now let's read Jeremiah 36 and 6. Now watch this. So it's a Jeremiah chapter 36 verse 6. It says, so now let's read. I'm gonna read verse 5. It says, and Jeremiah commanded Baruch, saying, I am shut up, I cannot go into the house of the Lord, right? So Jeremiah, at this time, he couldn't go into the house of the Lord, so he commanded Baruch, which Baruch was his scribe, right? So y'all take notes. Baruch was his scribe, right? So verse 6, it says, therefore go thou and read in the roll which thou hast written from my mouth the words of the Lord in the ears of the people of the Lord's house upon the fasting day, and also thou shalt read them in the ears of all Judah to come out of their city. So Jeremiah was like, what I commanded you and the word that I received from the Lord, Baruch, that you wrote down, because you are my scribe, I need you to take these words to the people, to the house of Judah, to the Israelites. Okay. What's up, boy?
Hey, shalom up.
Good to see you, Aki. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Good to have my boy on. Especially for this lesson, because this is what we interested in. Hey, if you want to pick up, go to verse 6, Jeremiah 36 and verse 6.
Okay,
yeah. Whenever you're ready, you can read that.
It's Jeremiah 36 and verse 6. It reads, Therefore go thou and read in the roll which thou hast written from my mouth the words of the Lord in the ears of the people in the Lord's house upon the fasting day. And also thou shalt read them in the ears of all Judah that come out of their cities.
So like I was explaining, right? Jeremiah, which we're actually reading the book of Jeremiah right now. So who knows, you know, particularly what these words that Jeremiah was writing and telling Baruch to go speak to the people, we're actually reading those words in the book of Jeremiah right now. So what Jeremiah wrote was able to be preserved to where now we get it in 2025. But now this is an interesting story, because watch what happened. Read verse 7.
Verse 7, it may be they will present their supplication before the Lord and will return everyone from his evil way, for great is the anger and the fury that the Lord hath pronounced against his people.
Read.
Verse 8, and Baruch the son of Neriah did according to all that Jeremiah the prophet commanded him, reading in the book the words of the Lord in the Lord's house.
You see that? So this is the words of the Lord that were written down by Jeremiah, which Jeremiah commanded Baruch to speak to the children of Israel. It's no different than what we're doing right now with the words, right? This is how we teach the gospel. This is how we teach the words of the Heavenly Father. But watch this. Go to verse 13. Watch this. Verse 13.
Then Micaiah declared unto them all the words that he had heard when Baruch read the book in the ears of the people. Therefore all the princes sent Jehudi the son of Nethaniah, the son of Shelemiah, the son of Cushi, unto Baruch, saying, Take in thine hand the roll wherein thou hast read in the ears of the people, and come. So Baruch the son of Neriah took the roll in his hand and came unto them.
Okay, so Baruch is now delivering the word, which was written down on parchment, right? But now let's get to the point now. But watch what I believe this is King who is this? This is what evil king is this? Go to verse 28. Read verse 28.
Take thee again another roll and write in it all the former words that were in the first roll, which Jehoiakim, the king of Judah, hath burned.
Go, actually, let's go to let me see. Start at verse 20. Go to 20. Go to 20.
Verse 20. And they went into the king into the court, but they laid up the roll in the chamber of El Shammah the scribe, and told all the words in the ears of the king.
Now, what happened was Elishama, right, told Baruch to go hide, because these words were not going to make the king happy. I believe this was, who was this? This was what evil king was this? This was let me see. I believe this is Joachim. All right. I think this is Jehoiakim, I believe. All right. Jehoiakim. All right. He was the king at this time. Now, when you read verse 30, okay. Now, what happened was Elisha, how do you pronounce it? Elishama, right? Was a scribe, went to the king to tell the king what was going on. And when he was going to tell the king what was going on, this is what the king actually did. Let's read verse 21.
Verse 21. So the king sent Jehudi to fetch the roll, and he took it out of El Shammah, or El Shammah,
yeah,
the scribe's chamber, and Jehudi read it in the ears of the king and in the ears of all the princes which stood beside the king.
Read.
Now the king sat in the winter house in the 9th month, and there was a fire on the hearth burning before him. And it came to pass that when Jehudi had read 3 or 4 leaves, he cut it with the penknife and cast it into the fire that was on the hearth, until all the roll was consumed in the fire that was on the hearth.
So the king took the words of this book and cut it up in pieces and threw it into fire, right? So you can see that not only were wicked heathen destroying our book, but also wicked Israelites were also destroying our law and destroying our prophets' words and destroying our book. Okay, completely negating what the Bible was actually for, right? Completely negating the words of the Most High God, right? So he literally destroyed this scroll that Jeremiah had wrote from the Lord. Read verse 24.
Verse 24, yet they were not afraid, nor rent their garments, neither the king nor any of his servants that heard all these words.
Read.
Nevertheless, Elnathan and Delaiah and Gemariah had made intercession to the king that he would not burn the roll, but he would not hear them.
He didn't care. He was wicked. He like, man, burn that. I don't care about the words of the Most High God. Destroy that book. Destroy it. Read verse 26.
But the king commanded Jeremiel, the son of Hamelech, and Sariah, the son of Azriel, and Shelemiah, the son of Abdeel, to take Baruch the scribe and Jeremiah the prophet, but the Lord hid them.
Because he was also trying to find the prophets to kill them as well, right? Read verse 27.
Then the word of the Lord came to Jeremiah after the king had burned the roll and the words which Baruch wrote at the mouth of Jeremiah, saying, take thee again another roll and write in it all the former words that were in the first roll, which Jehoiakim the king of Judah hath burned. Right.
So now I go here to tell you that our book has been destroyed, not only by heathens, but by our own people. Let's go from there. Let's get First Maccabees chapter 1, verse 56. Right. Now this is important because what we're doing is we're following a pattern here that when we got out of Egypt, we were given the law in the wilderness. And then when we directly, some years passed and the kingdom split, and from the split of the kingdom, the Bible or the word of God has been going through an up and down phase during the time of the kings, right? So you had some wicked kings, you had some righteous kings, and wicked kings would destroy our law. And then we would go into captivity for being wicked. And then the heathen will furthermore destroy our law, right? You'll see an example of this with the Greeks, right? A real big example in history that is very important for this lesson that we're actually going into today. Give me First Maccabees 1 and 56.
God, this is First Maccabees chapter 1, verse 56. And when they had rent in pieces the books of the law which they found, they burnt them with fire. And whosoever was found with any the book of the testament, or if any committed to the law, the king's commandment was that they should put him to death.
Now imagine that. Imagine anybody that sees you with the word of God, they're gonna put you to death. And they commanding you, or they have their officers burning the books of the law. So the Bible is that's why I said this book is so amazing, because it hasn't been, you could correct me if I'm wrong, Shire. Has it ever been a book like this that has been attacked in the fashion and the manner that this book has been attacked?
No,
I don't think so.
Not as far as religious texts at all.
At all. I mean there has been. Go ahead.
We see the hieroglyphs, not to cut your wisdom. We see the hieroglyphs in Egypt unscathed, completely fine to be seen. The toilet paper Quran. We see that thing, I mean, arguably sustained itself throughout antiquity and got changed by its own people over time, but not destroyed. But we see the Bible being destroyed over and over again from our own people all the way to the heathen. So yeah, I'd argue no religious texts went under this type of destruction besides our manuscripts.
Khan, I agree. Like our manuscripts, man, they've been put through the ringer, right? So let's read. Was that all of 56? Did you read 57?
Khan.
Okay, yeah. So it was to the point at this time that if anybody was found with the books of the law, you was literally put to death. Literally. You would literally be put to death. All right. So let's go from there. Go to give me Psalm 68, right? So we just gotta read these scriptures real quick to set up a precedence. Psalm 68 and 11.
This is Psalm 68 and verse 11. The Lord gave the word. Great was the company of those that published it.
And you know this was from the Lord, because no mere man can compile the manuscripts that needed to be compiled from different areas, different sections, different time periods, to tell one singular story, to tell one unbroken story, to tell the same story of the salvation promised to Israel and the battle that Israel has to fight. Right? this is given by the Spirit of the Most High God. But it was great was the company that published it. So this book, right, does not have one author, right? Not even just with the translations of the manuscripts, but just even when you look at the book itself, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Isaiah, Baruch, Hosea, all of these individuals, these are different people. Moses, living in different time periods that are writing one cohesive story that fits together fluently and congruently. So the scripture says the Lord gave the word. You can't explain that no other way but the Lord gave the word, right? But great was the company of those that published it, right? So the Spirit is letting you know that the word. Let me get that real quick. I didn't put it in there. I think what. Let me see. Matter of fact, let me see. I don't want not Psalm 68. Let me see. Yeah, go to Isaiah 34 and 16.
Okay, it's Isaiah 34 and verse 16. Seek ye out of the book of the Lord and read. No one of these shall fail. None shall want her mate.
See, so it says, none of these shall fail. None shall want her mate. Read.
For my mouth it hath commanded, and his spirit it hath gathered them.
You see that? So the Most High has literally gathered these words. I'm going to tell y'all, family, this is one of those lessons where you want to take notes because you want to know your book. You want to study and know everything about your book and why you read the text that you read. But the Most High, simply put, he had to gather these words. It couldn't have been no mere man that gathered these words. It's impossible. All of the years that this word has been destroyed and the people have come against this word to destroy it and keep it from us, it's impossible that this was by the will of man to keep these words alive, right? Like I said, over 5,000 Greek manuscripts. What, Shire, correct me if I'm wrong, over 16,000 Latin manuscripts? 16,000 Latin manuscripts. And then you have the Hebrew text, the Masoretic, and then the Dead Sea Scrolls, right? All preserved, all saying one story, all lining up together and fitting as one cohesive book, right? That is an amazing work that a man alone couldn't do. That's why the Lord had to give it, but great were those that published it. Great was the company of them that published it, right? Had this work done. Did you want to add something out?
Wow.
Okay, let's go to First Maccabees chapter 3, verse 48. Okay. All right, so not only did the Greeks like destroy the law and then forbid anyone to have the law, they also did this. They painted their filthy images in the law, right? Similar to what they do today. They got Christ looking like a Caucasian man, right? Let's read that when you got it up.
God, this is First Maccabees chapter 3, verse 48. And laid open the books of the book of the law, wherein the heathen had sought to paint the likeness of their images.
You see that? The heathen, not only did they destroy the books of the law, but they also start painting images of their Greek gods, their freaky gods, right? Zeus and all of these Greek mythology gods and all of that. And they painted the images of these things in our text, right? So we had to go back. We had to have able men, and this is during the time, I believe this is during the time of Antiochus, which was about 167 BC, right? About 167 BC. So you got Antiochus on the scene, and from that point, right, now we have a date, right? So we didn't necessarily have a spot on date when Jehoiakim was having the law destroyed or when the law was lost during the time of Hezekiah, but now we can put a date that we have a date in 167 BC, right, where the book was destroyed and it had images of idol gods, meaning put it within our text, right? Now this is important to understand because this is where we later get our Septuagint from the Hellenization period, right? The Hellenistic period, when our people were Hellenized and absorbed into the Greek customs. And this is where we get, like, I hear a lot of brothers always say, oh, that's the Greek, that's the Greek. You got to respect the Greek, man. You have to respect the Greek, because most of our people at this particular time and moving forward spoke Greek, right? This is why the Septuagint was so important, that was compiled together, right? I believe the 70 scholars that compiled the Septuagint, right? The LXX, okay? We're going to go into that. So let me share my screen. Let's get into this PowerPoint that I made. Let's get into this PowerPoint that I made. All right. And then let's go ahead and share this. All right. So this is Bible manuscripts. We're going to talk about the Septuagint, the KJV, and the ESV. All right. History, preservation, and comparison. All right. So again, remember, this is the KJV versus the ESV, but we got to kind of go into this history, right? We got to kind of go into this history so y'all can understand how we got here. Okay. So we talked about a little bit about Antiochus, right? Antiochus under the Seleucid king, was a Seleucid king. And what did he do? We read First Maccabees 56 through 57. What did he do? He burned the scrolls, burnt the text, had images put into the text, so on and so forth. He desecrated the temple of the Most High God and filled the temple with pagan sacrifices, executed the Jews who observed the law and circumcision, you know, and it sparked the Maccabean revolt, right? If you know anything about the Maccabees, right? As a result, the Torah was recopied and Judaism was preserved. Now, this is important because the Torah was recopied, but we also had to make a Greek version of the Torah because of the Hellenization that took place. So we had our people that spoke fluently. So now, and like I said, family, this is such a deep class. I could literally go into, and I'm not looking at the chat. So if anybody is coming and disrupting in the chat, moderators, please get them out of there. But again, we could go into just and have a 3-hour class just on the Septuagint alone, but we're not doing that today. We're just going to talk about how the KJV and the ESV actually came about. But the Septuagint is very important because the Septuagint is a large piece of our history dealing with the Maccabean revolt and how we had to retranslate the Torah, right? All right. The Septuagint, ancient Greek translation of the Hebrew scriptures. All right. It was produced 3rd to 2nd century BC in Alexandria. All right. The name means 70, or the LXX, linked to the 70 or 72 translators. First translation of the Hebrew Bible, right? So this is the first Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible that was actually done in Alexandria, and that is in Egypt, okay? Alexandria, Egypt, where this was. It was a lot of our people were in Egypt at that time. I believe Ptolemy, I forgot if it was what Ptolemy it was, but Ptolemy was the king that actually allowed us to have the Greek written in the Torah written in Greek. Okay.
And to your point,
go ahead.
To that point of Alexandria, that's very important because what we're about to go into, I don't, cut me if I'm jumping the gun.
No, you good.
But this is very important to understand where the manuscripts come from. And that's why we're going into Alexandria, Egypt, because this is where these manuscripts were found, right? Because you have two major manuscript traditions. You have the Byzantium, right, which came medieval time, and then you have the Alexandrian tradition, which is where we're about to go into. I'm not going to jump the gun too much because I know the brother has this information in his PowerPoint presentation, but just so you know, when you hear brothers talk about manuscript tradition, you're starting to hear it more and more within the community. As of these days, as knowledge is increasing, brothers are going into manuscript tradition because it's important, which is kind of like what got me thinking and going into the different translations and understanding the root of these other translations in English, which goes back to the manuscripts. But I'm not going to say too much. But just so you know, if you hear Alexandrian tradition, these are manuscripts that come from Alexandria, Egypt. Byzantium is from the Byzantine Empire. And I use.
Hey, in Ashire, speak freely, bro. Speak freely. You speak freely. Ashire, just to give my brother some praise. Very, very studied in this. I'm happy he's on because he's very, very. You got those brothers that had a knack. You know what I mean? You got they brothers that had a knack. This is one of his knacks where he's very studied in the text and the translations and the scriptures, like, and the origin of them. So speak freely, King. Whenever you want to speak, just interject at any time. We building together. Matter of fact, I like the ESV, but the person that actually introduced me to the ESV and really made me start really going into it was Brother Shire, right? So all love and respect to that brother, man. So at any time interrupt, right? So we building together. And even if you want to bring out another point, you can bring it out, right? So the Septuagint is important, right? Again, I like to start with the Greeks because that is where we actually have a time frame of one of the major times where our scriptures were destroyed, and we can kind of clock it and kind of follow that timeline and see, right? So how many years ago was that? How long ago? Huh?
The what year? The
third century, like the 3rd century to the 2nd century BC.
Hold on, we had to do some math. That's a few thousand.
That's a few thousand. I'm putting you on the spot. Don't even trip. That's like a few thousand years, right?
Yeah.
That's that's
that's
cold.
about 1,800 years. So
18,
a little bit less than a few thousand, but about 1,800 years.
1,800 years, right? So just so y'all can get a perspective of what we talking about, bro. That's 1,800 years. And before that, but we just going with the Greek time period, right? One of the major events that destroyed our text. 1,800 years of preservation.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. All right. The Septuagint was created because Greek became common language after Alexander the Great. Jews in diaspora needed scriptures in Greek. Ptolemy II requested for the Library of Alexandria, right? Started with the Torah. So he was the one that was like, look, let's go ahead. You know what I mean? Let's get the Torah in the Greek, right? Because it was a lot of our people that were dispersed among the Greeks, and they spoke Greek. And so we wrote the text in Greek. Let me go ahead and get this. For the brothers that are the Hebrew only, I gotta be the Hebrew. Look, listen. Let me just go here real quick. Let's go to Isaiah. Go back to Isaiah 28.
Okay.
Isaiah 28 and 11.
This is Isaiah 28 and 11. It says, "For with stammering lips and another tongue will he speak to this people."
So the Most High is going to speak to us in different languages. All right. He's going to speak to us in different languages. That's actually prophecy. So the English, the Greek, the Hebrew, all of that, the Spanish, because we ain't even going into Reina and Valera with the Spanish translation of the Bible and where the Spanish translation came from. We just dealing with the English right now. But what I'm telling you is that the Most High says, I will speak to you in a different language. Okay, so we can see that. So the Greek Septuagint had to be created because of the Hellenization that took place. Okay, there were ancient Hebrew scrolls that was used, right? Torah translated first, other books followed over 100 years. So the Torah was actually translated, and then other books began to be added from like 100-year time frame. So they were adding things to the Septuagint for like 100 years. Right, that means that they must have been finding new things that have been destroyed or lost, right? Translators varied, some literal, some interpretive. We're going to talk about that a little later. Different styles across books, right? Hebrew manuscripts were used, right? Older than the Masoretic text. For an example, the Dead Sea Scrolls. We're going to get into the Dead Sea Scrolls today as well. All of this is important. So Aramaic You had the Aramaic text. What's the politically correct name for the Peshitta?
Yeah.
The Peshitta? Or is that the New Testament?
Aramaic, because the Peshitta was in Syriac, which is a slightly different dialect. The Syriac Peshitta.
Okay. The Syriac, but we did have our Bible written in the Aramaic language.
Parts of Daniel are written in Aramaic. The book of Daniel.
Parts of Daniel. So the importance of it. All right, it was used by Greek-speaking Jews. That's important, because how would our people that were scattered in the Hellenization, how were they going to read the law? Became the main Bible for the early church, and it was preserved and influenced Christian theology. So, you know, the Septuagint is very important for what we have today. Okay, and the reason why I'm talking about how important the Septuagint is because it's going to come full circle later down the line. All right.
And a great point.
Go ahead.
Because I just pulled my notes up here. Right, to my brother's point about brothers who something wrong with wanting to read the Hebrew, but to the point that my brother's making and the importance of the Septuagint is that we got to understand the diaspora at the time, which he's going into right now, right? The majority of Jews lived outside of Israel at this time. We were Hellenized. We had just got destroyed. And as we just read in First Maccabees, our manuscripts were being destroyed as well. So the reason for the Septuagint even coming about was to keep us in touch with the Most High. So we were getting ready to be out of touch. When you read the book of First Maccabees and you read specifically about Antiochus, the brother was literally stripping us of our identity, right? We bring that scripture out all the time, that it was literally illegal to even consider yourself a Jew, to call yourself a Jew. That was punishable by death, right? So you got to understand that many Jews were living outside of Israel, and especially in Alexandria, Greek. And most of us spoke Greek as our first language, not Hebrew. You got to remember that. That's why the New Testament period is so important in bringing those two sticks back together. That's what it's all about, because we had got separated so far from the Most High during the Hellenistic age that we had to have brothers like Paul who could speak other languages to go and talk to us, because a lot of us can speak Hebrew, right? So again, the translation needed the Septuagint was so important because a lot of us were in danger of losing touch with our heritage, with our religion, with our God, right? To this brother's point. So the Septuagint ended up being that solution, right? A Greek translation of the Hebrew scriptures that began around 2nd, 3rd century, like he's bringing out now, under Ptolemy II in Alexandria.
Yeah. Get to your point. Get John 19 and 20. Okay. Somebody just hold on one second while you get that. Okay. Yeah, John 19 and 20.
Con, this is John chapter 19 and verse 20. This title then read many of the Jews, for the place where Jesus was crucified was nigh to the city, and it was written in Hebrew and Greek and Latin.
You see that? Hebrew, Greek, and Latin. So you brothers out there that, you know, the New Testament was written in Greek. Well, your Old Testament was too, brother. Like the New Testament wasn't just written in Greek. The Old Testament was too. Oh, you can't trust it. It's the Greek. Brother, most of our people at this time spoke Greek, right? And Latin and Hebrew. So you can see that, you know, it's nothing wrong with the Greek, right? It's nothing wrong with the Latin. So don't let nobody try to attack you and tell you it gotta only be the Hebrew. Nah, it don't gotta only be the Hebrew. It gotta be whatever language the Most High God commanded to be spoken, right? And we can see Hebrew, Greek, and Latin, which is a crazy theme to think about with this, because that's what primarily our text is compiled of, the Hebrew, Greek, and Latin. Mm-hmm. Ain't that something? The Hebrew, Greek, and Latin, right? Which was the primary language during the time of Christ, as we can see, in John chapter 19, verse 20, because why did the title have to be in Hebrew, Greek, and Latin? That's because that was what the modern language at that time, the languages that was being spoken of at that time. So you also had early persecution, 2nd century, 4th century, right? ED. or AD, excuse me, or EC, right? And you got like the Roman Empire, right? During the persecutions of Christians, particularly under Diocletian, right? So Diocletian was a bastard, and he would attack the Jews and attack the Christ-believing Jews, the believers of the way, right? And he laid out edicts and orders to destroy all the scriptures and to burn them. So this is now dealing with the Romans. We jump in centuries now. This is now dealing with the Romans now. And you got Diocletian, who is now trying to destroy our scriptures and burn them, right? So now we're not even in the Greeks, and we're not even in the time of the kings. We in a whole nother time period, and you can see our book trying to be burned and destroyed. Many biblical manuscripts were lost during this time. However, Christians often hid manuscripts in some communities, preserved copies that later resurfaced. So literally our people at this time, they had to hide. Mind you, and these Christians were Jews, by the way. Just want y'all to know that. These Christians were actually Israelites. They were actually persecuting the Israelites. And they were destroying our scrolls, destroying our manuscripts, and we had to hide them to preserve some of them, right? It's crazy that as many manuscripts that we have survived over the time, right? I think this is Eusebius, right?
Yeah, Eusebius.
Early church father, right? He actually recorded Diocletian's persecution, right? And how they demolished and banned the worship of the Most High and burned a lot of our scriptures, destroyed. He was actually a witness of the destroying of our manuscripts. Just imagine them taking books of the scriptures and just burning them in the streets, right? A lot of people surrendered the scrolls and the texts. Countless manuscripts were lost. Some were hidden, right? Emperor Constantine later came and he, reestablished Christianity. Well, he created a new Christianity, right? Because he tried to bring everybody together, but that to no avail because, he added pagan customs within the Christianity that we have today. But nonetheless, the Most High still used him to preserve the manuscripts, right? So he made it okay for the manuscripts to be preserved, after Diocletian and others that we can actually go into that actually wanted to destroy the text, right? This is during the medieval time. Now, this is actually going into King James. So now we're bringing it back home now. So now we're going to go back into the King James. So you got over 18,000 years of history of our text being burned and destroyed, right? So you got the medieval period. During the medieval period, right? 1600s, 1500s, 1400s, right? We kind of jump in time periods just to bring it home to the ESV and the KJV. But you see that we had the Latin Vulgate at the time, which was under the Catholic Church's control. All right. And they didn't allow anybody, right? They didn't allow anybody to have their own Bibles, or it wasn't like you could walk around freely with a Bible at this time. The Catholic Church would literally get killed in the worst way for trying to have your own copy of the Bible, right? So the Latin Vulgate was under the control of the Catholic Church, right? You had the Wycliffe English Bible, which was one of the Bibles that was written. It was because King James wasn't the first English Bible, but it was the first authoritative English Bible. But you got like the Bible, like Wycliffe, he tried to do, have an English Bible, but he was persecuted, right? His interpretation or his translation of the Bible was destroyed, right? And then you have the Tinsdale, which that Bible was burned, right, by the Catholic Church. And he actually was executed 1536. He actually was put to death for trying to have his own translation, or not even trying to have his own, but trying to make the Bible readily available. The manuscripts, I should say, before I say Bible, the manuscripts readily available for the layman, right? Which the Catholic Church did not want anybody to have, right? And the devils was trying to keep the Bible from being in the hands of everyone. Did you want to add something now? Okay, Con. So now we get to, and also, if anybody knows about the printing press was invented to published, mass produced the Bible. How many of y'all knew that? How many of y'all knew that the printing press, right? Because mind you, we got books and stuff today. It wasn't like that back in the day. You know what I mean? Everybody wasn't reading and things like that. You just didn't have, like, people that had libraries were like the top scholars and stuff like that. You couldn't just go on Amazon and buy a book the way we could do now. But the printing press, if y'all didn't know, the printing press was something that was created to give access to everybody so everybody can have a Bible. All right. How many of y'all knew that? Right? If y'all didn't know that, then now you know, right? So now we get to the King James 1611, which was an eventually established English scriptures. Right now, King James was different from Tyndale and, you know, all the other people that tried to have their own translations. King James was actually the king of Scotland and the king of England, right? I think he was the first of Scotland and the sixth of England. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. But he was a king, so he had the resources and he had the military might and the control and the power to be able to mass produce, get the scrolls first and foremost, and then produce what we now have as the KJV 1611 Bible, right? But he still had a hard time with trying to get this out, right? So let's get a timeline. So we got a little timeline, and stop me at any time. Stop me at any time. So we got a timeline, right? So we got 167 BC. You got Antiochus, right? Destroyed the text. Then you got 70 AD. Romans came. And even a little bit before, but I put 70 AD here because that was the final destruction, right? And the scrolls were. You got to think about it. How could I forget 70 AD? When they destroyed our temple and destroyed our city, man, they was destroying our scriptures too, and the manuscripts too, right? Totally obliterating the manuscripts. So the manuscripts that survived probably was somebody that was hurrying up trying to get out of there. He just grabbed a manuscript real quick. Probably only grabbed a couple or whatever he could grab, right? Mm-hmm. But you got the Romans destroying our manuscripts in 70 AD. Then you got other different revolts, right? 135 AD, Bar Kokhba, right? Revolt, where, you know, it's so many revolts where the text was suppressed, right? 1242, right? 24 cartloads of Talmud and Hebrew manuscripts burned, right? You got the Spanish Inquisition. All of this we could go in deeply, but we're not gonna go in deeply today on it. But 1492, you got the Spanish Inquisition, confiscated and burned Hebrew texts. 11th to 13th century, you got the Crusades, burned Torah scrolls. 17th to the 20th centuries, Eastern Europe, destroying scrolls. Our people were over there too. That's where you get like Tarshish and all of that, and you get Rome was the area of Europe, so our people was all over there too. So you got this revolt that took place and destroyed scrolls. 1933 to 1945, you got even the Nazis were burning Torah scrolls and Jewish libraries, right? Because, you know, even though those are heathens, they still had a lot of our history too, right? I forgot the political correct name of, is it called a jihad where they burn biblical texts? I don't know if it's called a jihad. Let me see. Huh?
Here, I can look it up real quick.
Yeah, look it up. What is it called when religious zealots burn religious texts?
From what I see, it's called book burning.
Book burning. It's a politically correct name, but
biblioclasm or libricide.
Okay.
Is what I'm getting right here.
Okay. Well, I can't it'll come to me. But nonetheless, you do have religious zealots like Muslims, radical Muslims. They'll go and burn up, and try to destroy ancient biblical texts. All right. So this is just giving you guys a comprehensive look at how the scriptures were actually destroyed over the years, like completely obliterated. For us to have what we have now is a miracle. under the Most High. So let's go a little bit more into King James. So the history of King James. Why did King James even have the scriptures commissioned? Commissioned by King James, the first of England, in 1604. First published in 1611. Translated by 50 scholars, from Hebrew, Greek, and Latin texts. Built upon earlier English translations. Tyndale, Geneva Bible. Became the standard English Bible for centuries. Known for majestic, literary style of wide influence of English language. Excuse my language. All right. So basically, King James had this commission, which we're going to get some history on it, because trying to give the people back the power to be able to read the text and not have the text only put in the hands of the Catholic Church, right? So the previous Bibles, you got the Wycliffe, the Tyndale, the Geneva, Bishop Bible, you know what I mean? But the King James, without a doubt, is one of the top, because a lot of these Bibles were put together with limited resources as well. Roman Catholics, they outright rejected the King James Bible in the project since it came from a Protestant Church of England at the time. Catholics already had their own English translation, the Douay-Rheims Bible, I believe. And the Catholic leaders criticized the KJV as biased, and English Catholics were forbidden from using it. So, the King James Bible survived a lot of scrutiny, right? From a lot of powerful figures, Catholic Church, so on and so forth, that forbid people that followed them from even reading it, right? Even so much so that they even made attempts on King James's life, right? So if anybody know about me, they've heard me in the past say the gunpowder plot, right? So the gunpowder plot was the attempt to actually assassinate King James. It says a group of English Catholic conspirators, including Robert Catsby, Guy Fawkes, and others, they planned to blow up the Houses of Parliament on November 5th, 1605, during a state opening when King James, his family, and most of the Parliament would be present. They smuggled 36 barrels of gunpowder, that's about a ton, into a cellar beneath Parliament. Guy Fawkes, an explosive expert, was assigned to light the fuse. So they was actually trying to assassinate King James for his political views and for actually, translating the Bible and giving it into the hands of the people, which the Catholic Church at the time had most of the power. Remember, like if you watch that movie, The Book of Eli, right? If you watch that movie, The Book of Eli, then you will see that, it's no different. If any man that controls that book controls the people. And that's a fact. All right. Now, this is where we starting to get into. I'm kind of breezing through the history. It's a lot of history. So the KJV was a work that survived, was one of the English, is very important because it is what we now have today, and what the English Bibles have to reference from is they reference from King James. So now let's get a little bit about the KJV, ESV, I should say. So it was published in 2001. All right. It is a revision of the Revised Standard Version, the RSV, right? 1952 is when the RSV was actually revived. And all of this is a revision from the KJV, right? It is a balanced, I'm gonna read down. It is essentially literal, right? So it's a literal translation. I like the literal translation because Shai, you want to go into that a little bit? How you have a literal.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So I've actually heard a couple of brothers actually call the ESV a dynamic translation, right? So what a dynamic translation is a thought for thought translation, right? So it's not a literal word for word translation. So your word for word translations are going to be your KJV, your New King James Version, your ESV, and your NASB, right? And you're going to have your thought for thought translations, which are going to be your NIVs, your NLTs, your GNTs, right? So you're not going to see word for word, but it's going to more so speak to the thought of what's being said. within those texts. Now, they both serve a purpose, but if you're a biblical scholar and you want to actually get to the nitty gritty of what the prophets, the disciples were actually trying to get across to you, I want to know exactly what they said, exactly how they said it, right? So,
word for word, word for word,
word for word. So, that's why, again, going back to the brother Rajazan's point, why we lean on the KJV and ESV, because they're more concrete translations of the original manuscripts, right? So that's why it says essentially literal, because they're to the best of their ability taking each word from specifically the ESV, more modern and more discovered recently manuscripts to get the full gist of what was going on. Because the KJV, they had limited resources; they only had 3 manuscripts. The ESV has like 6 to 7, right? So now certain nuances that the KJV doesn't necessarily translate, the ESV does it for them because they have
perfect.
more resources to pull from.
Yeah, and that's why the ESV is would you call the ESV like the son of the KJV?
Yeah,
Right.
it builds off the same foundation as the KJV for sure.
Yes, but it has more. But we'll get into it too. But I love what you said too, because you have thought for thought translations like the GNT. That's a thought for thought, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is the NIV thought for thought?
Yeah.
NIV. So that's more of a like a we're translating based off of the same, like a thought, like, you know, not a literal translation. It's more so what thought is this translation trying to convey, and then we'll translate it from a thought perspective, versus a literal translation where I'm literally taking word from word what it said and just translating it. I'm always going to lean from a literal standpoint, because it's more accurate, right? So the ESV and the KJV are literal translations and not thought for thought translations. So whenever you're picking what, that's important for you to understand whenever you're picking what text you want to choose to read from, because me personally, I want to lean more to thought for literal. Thought for thought leaves too much error and biblical misinterpretation, in my opinion.
So to
Right?
that point too, right?
Yeah.
Because again, Ishiko made a great statement, right? So you have formal equivalence, which is a word for word translation, and then your dynamic equivalence, which is your thought for thought, right? So again, a word for word translation is the translator is striving to match exact words from the manuscript to English to the best of their ability, right? The brother already read it, Sirach, that some words are not going to translate, period, right? But in a thought for thought, you have external influence that can influence the translation. So this is why, if I could, real quick, right? So let me pull up this in Matthew 15 real quick. I want to
Go
show
ahead.
you diabolical.
What you want to share your screen?
Yeah, let me pull it up first, though.
Okay, yeah, you can. Whenever you're ready, I'm gonna just stop sharing mines, and then you can share your screen. Yeah, family, there's a lot of meat and potatoes in this class, y'all. So bear with us, man. And trying to articulate this formally for you guys to know. Yeah, and another thing too, a lot of translations, I have to be honest, they will insert their own dogma. Like Coronop said, they definitely will insert their own dogma into the text. That's where the thought for thought comes. So yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
It might be Matthew in the NLT.
Okay.
Bear with me 1 second, family.
Now you good. I think I also have, when we get back to the PowerPoint, I think I did put it in there where I actually have the differences of the let me see. Literal and thought for thought.
I think it's the
Yeah,
account.
whenever you're ready. Yeah.
1 second. It's essentially there's a translation of the situation with eating with unwashing hands. which I believe is in the Mark account in the NLT, where it says that you are good to eat unclean food.
Oh yeah, we need that.
And this is going to show emphatically. Hold on, let me do this. Make it easy.
Yeah, just let me know when you're ready. Yeah.
Because I can't remember the exact precept.
No, you're good. What you looking for, Matthew? What?
Yes. Okay, it's the NIV. So let's go to Mark 7. I knew it was the Mark account. Okay, boom. Let me pull this up real quick. About to show y'all something real quick. So
You can share, right?
with me. Thank you for bearing with me. I found it. All right, so watch this. Let's go to Mark.
You can share your screen, right?
Yeah, I'm about to share it right now. Hold on.
All right.
Back over here. I didn't got bougie, so I'm looking at a monitor right now, y'all. That's why I'm looking over here and back over here because I got a monitor. So I'm bougie now.
You got a monitor now, huh?
Yeah, I'm sharing my screen. Watch this, y'all. I'm gonna show y'all thought for thought and how the doctrine can influence the translation here when you get away from going word for word. I'm sharing my screen. You gotta pull it up for me to watch.
Oh, I do. Okay, let me add your screen and then go ahead and take over. All right.
All right, so boom, y'all see this? So this is Mark chapter 7, NLT. This is a thought for thought translation. I'm about to show y'all something absolutely diabolically nefarious, right? I'm going to just read from verse 14. Mark 7 and 14, it says, Then Yahushua called to the crowd to come and hear. All of you listen, he said, and try to understand. It's not what goes into your body that defiles you. You are defiled by what comes from your heart. So already starting with this premise, right? Verse 17. Then Yahushua went into a house to get away from the crowd, and his disciples asked him what he meant by the parable he had just used. Don't you understand either? He asked, Can't you see that the food you put into your body cannot defile you? Food doesn't go into your heart, but only passes through the stomach and then goes into the sewer. By saying this, he declared that every kind of food is acceptable in God's eyes. Do y'all see that?
That's sick. What? This is the NIV?
This is the NLT.
NLT. Wow. And this is a NLT is a thought for thought, right?
Yes. Now, do y'all see how this influence? Why it's important to understand what kind of translation you are reading as well. This is diabolically nefarious.
Absolutely, I like that. Diabolically nefarious. God.
You know what I'm saying? And a lot of people don't know this is here. But this is why it's important to understand this. Now, there's the and this is, I want to say this too, family, right? Because no translation is perfect. The KJV is not perfect. The ESV not perfect. The New King James, etc. No translation is perfect because it's just that, a translation, right? It's subject to error. The NLT gets things right in some places, and it gets things very wrong in some cases, as we see here in this very terrible translation, right? It says, by saying this, he declared that every kind of food is acceptable in God's eyes. What kind of doctrine is that pushing? Antinomianism. The dietary law no longer exists, right? And this comes from a thought for thought translation, because this is what the translators of the NLT think Christ is teaching. So they translate, hey, so Christ, what he's saying right here is that God actually deemed all foods clean. And we know that's not the case. Right.
What was that? That was what?
This is Mark chapter 7 and verse 19 in the NLT.
7 and 19?
In the NLT. But I just want to show y'all that, to my brother's point, right? Of why I can get real spooky, using these thought for thought translations to establish your doctrine, right? That's why it gets super spooky. I mean, y'all can see, I just gave y'all a very, very clear example of that, right? We know Christ is not teaching
Mm-hmm.
Now everybody's saying diabolically nefarious.
God, it is though.
It is. It's horrible.
That's
That's
sick.
what, you know. So you got to be careful, family. So this lesson is important, right? And when I brought this to Rod Design, he didn't accept it right away.
I
Uh,
didn't. I didn't.
he did not accept it right away. You know, I gave
Hey,
my.
you know what? Let me just say something real quick. I gotta say this. I hate to say the One West doctrine. I hate to say that, but we have to grow past what we've been taught, right? And not everything, but I was taught KJV only, nothing else. KJV only. But as I'm growing in wisdom and I'm understanding that the best way to study the scriptures is with comparative translation.
Facts.
Because as we're going to see, there are some things that the ESV does better than the KJV. And I have to be honest with that. If I take off my religious biases or my Hebraic or my One West bias or whatever the case may be, I'm just being honest because I come from One West. If I take my One West bias away, I have to be honest and I have to say the ESV got it right here. And the KJV, it's not that it got it wrong, but just that's why I read the prologue. That's exactly why I read the prologue, right? I read the prologue because everything's not going to be 100%. This is a hard work, right? It's not to say the KJV is bad. It's just that we have more resources now, and this is where we're going to get into where the ESV actually comes from. So where the KJV didn't have the Dead Sea Scrolls, the ESV now has the Dead Sea Scrolls. So it's more readily viable information. So the ESV actually, I think in your ESV, it tells you that it heavenly is inspired by the KJV, right?
Facts.
Yeah. And your preference, right? In the preface, right? So we might have to read that for the people because the ESV is not trying to replace the KJV and it's not against the KJV. It just is creating the errors that it's seen in the KJV based off of the new material we have, you know, Dead Sea Scrolls being one of those. So, you know, we gotta grow. We gotta grow with the information, and this is why I'm leaning to the ESV. But you know, you do got some crazy ass translations out there. You know what I mean? Like I was gonna pull up in the NIV. Let me see. I think it's Psalms 87. Let me see. Our Psalms 80. Hold on. 82. Oh no, I'm okay.
And one of the main reasons,
go ahead.
Within the last couple of years, I started to lean on the ESV, is because I was trained in the KJV. When I first came into the truth, it was KJV. Brothers wasn't using no other translations back
at all.
Brothers, I came into truth 2020. I'm gonna just speak from my own experience. I didn't see no brothers using no other translations besides the KJV, right? So I was trained in it. I could read the KJV. I can read it poetically. Wouldn't stumble over a word. I would go back and look up words like peradventure, which just means perhaps. Like, why the heck they were saying peradventure instead of just saying perhaps is crazy to me. But nevertheless, right? It's easier to read, but it doesn't, for the most part, mitigate the doctrine for easier reading, right? So to a lot of sisters, I've heard a lot of people say, man, it's just so hard to read. It's hard for me to get into the KJV because of the language, right? We don't speak Old King's English anymore. We don't say thou and thee and peradventure. Nobody says that unless we having biblical conversation. Ain't nobody talking like that. So it's a lot more difficult for new believers coming into the truth, especially with our people who sometimes don't have the I don't want to say the literacy, but yeah, the literacy to, you know, get into that. They need something a lot more simple for them to digest when they just now coming into the truth, but still able to get the doctrine. And this is just being real about the situation. So the ESV allots that. It translates the word into more modern English, but keeps the doctrine intact.
And keeps the literal formation, right? Look, I'm gonna show you. And again, like I said, KJV and the ESV are my go-to translations. Those are my go-tos from here on out in my studying. But I want to show y'all something. Let me show y'all. So look at the NIV. Remember this, we're gonna go over the thought for thought, right? So let me share my screen. Look at this. So let's go to some. Everybody know about the famous Psalms 147, right? Let's read Psalms 1. Let's read Psalms 147, 19 and 20 in the ESV, right? I mean, in the NIV. Look at what it says in the NIV. He has revealed his word to Jacob, his laws and decrees to Israel. He has done this for no other nation. They do not know his law. Praise the Lord. Do y'all see the reading on that? He has not done this for no other nation versus he has not dealt with no other nation. You see that? So now when you pull this out, somebody can say, no, yeah, he didn't. Of course, he didn't give his law originally to the other nations. Yeah, but he's still dealing with them. You see that? Look how it reads in the ESV. He declares his word to Jacob, his statutes and his rules to Israel. He has not dealt thus with any other nation. They do not know his rules. Praise the Lord. So now you can see, wait, he has not dealt thus with any other nation. He has not dealt with any nation versus he has not done this for no other nation. It's two different meanings in its entirety. Y'all understand? So clearly somebody with this NIV translation, with their thought for thought, is trying to condone or make it a lesser blow for the other heathenistic nations, right? But when you look at the ESV, it kept that literal rawness to the Lord is not dealing with another nation versus he has not done this. Like me saying I have not done something from a shire versus me saying I'm not even dealing with a shire is two different understandings. Is that making sense?
And I got
Is that making sense?
You
got one more? Let me get it real. Okay, Con, let me get that real quick for them in the KJV, and let me show y'all just to show you guys how the ESV is just confirming the KJV, right? All right. Look at what it says in the KJV. He showeth, but KJV is a more poetic. He showeth his word unto Jacob, his statutes and his judgments unto Israel. He hath not dealt so with any nation. And as for his judgments, they have not known them. Praise ye the Lord. So you see, the ESV kept the integrity there. The NIV tried to changing it seemingly like craftiness, you know what I mean, in a way. And you can see that throughout the text. You want to show something?
Yeah, I'm gonna share my screen real quick. I'm gonna show y'all something else diabolically nefarious, man. Watch this.
All right, let me.
All right, so y'all follow me, right? We're back in NLT. We're in Romans chapter 14. Watch this. It's about to get spooky again. It's Romans 14 and 14. It says, I know and am convinced on the authority of the Lord Jesus that no food in and of itself is wrong to eat.
That's crazy. That's crazy. That's crazy. Diabolical, nefarious, right?
Diabolically nefarious.
Diabolically nefarious. That's crazy.
It's doctrine, right, that gets imposed on the translation a lot of times with these thought for thought translation, especially primarily when you get to the New Testament, primarily, right? But I just wanted y'all. Hey, my brother Carnell said he was bewildered earlier.
Crazy.
By that Mark 7, but it gets worse, right? It says, I know and am convinced on the authority of the Lord Jesus. Imagine this being preached in Sunday school. Imagine how authoritative the pastor is going to be reading this out of the NLT.
What verse is that?
That's Romans 14 and 14 in the NLT.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So I'll leave y'all with that, family. Y'all can, expound upon these things, but yeah, I just wanted to, give y'all a little bit more, right? Give y'all two witnesses, if you will.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Yes, sir. Good stuff. Let's go back to the PowerPoint.
Exactly. No wonder they are confused. you got to be careful with the translations you're using.
Yeah,
for sure.
Let me just skip to here. So you got thought for thought translations, right? The NIV, the New Living Translation, the NLT, which brother just read, the GNT, the TEV, right? CSB, right? All of these are thought for thought, right? Thought for thought. And look what it says: easier to read than the ESV, but still faithful to the text. I doubt that. I doubt that. But yeah, so the ESV is a literal translation, the KJV is a literal as well. Let's go back up real quick. So yeah, so the ESV, right? It is a popular translation too, and it's widely used for study, preaching, and devotion. So the ESV is really used for studying, right? So you got a timeline of major translations: the Septuagint, the Latin Vulgate, the Wycliffe, Tyndale, King James, the Revised Standard Version, and the English Standard Version. Notice how this is a timeline of the major translations. Notice you don't see the NLT and none of the thought for thought translations there, right? This is a timeline of major Bible translations, right? From the Septuagint all the way to the ESV, right? From the King James, because the ESV was the RSV was rebirth from the King James, and then the ESV was basically a correction or revision of the RSV that comes from the King James, right? So here we got a side by side comparison. The KJV, first published in 1611, commissioned by King James, based on the Textus Receptus and the Masoretic text. All right. So that's important to understand. So the Masoretic and the Textus Receptus, it is majestic, poetic. It is beautiful but harder for modern readers. Still love for tradition and worship. So it is a very poetic book, but it can be hard. So if you want an easier read, the ESV offers that without changing anything, without changing the concepts, right? Matter of fact, it boosts up what the KJV was originally meant to be. So the ESV, which was published in 2001, it comes from the RSV. It is based on critical text and wider manuscripts. It's critical text and wider manuscripts. So the ESV is like a very, very scholarly work. All right. Remember, it's a literal translation. So with a thought for thought, you don't need, you know what I mean? You don't necessarily need I could take the KJV and just, okay, this is what I think it's saying right here, and I can create my translation based off of the thought of what I'm thinking is here, right? It's modern, clear English with dignity, balances accuracy with readability, widely used in evangelical churches. So it is very, very accurate in its translation. All right. So the KJV, like I said earlier, came from the Masoretic and the Textus Receptus, right? And it includes the Apocrypha. Now, one thing I want to say this, because the ESV also comes from the Masoretic, but it also comes from the Dead Sea Scrolls and from the LXX, which is the Septuagint, and the Nestil Alad, right, which is also another Greek text, right? So it comes from the Masoretic, the Dead Sea Scrolls, and the Greek Septuagint. This is very important because the KJV didn't have these particular translations at hand, right? They didn't have the Dead Sea Scrolls. So now that we have the Dead Sea Scrolls offer us more insight and to get a better translation. We're going to get an example of that, right? But you guys can see here that the ESV was translated from scholarship. Okay. Did you want to add something in there?
Allah.
Okay. All right. So like I said, it's these are the different, if you read in the KJV versus the ESV, KJV is formal, majestic, retain ecclesiastical terms by royal command. Oh, also what I want to say, I forgot, because y'all notice it says the Apocrypha is included with the KJV. The Apocrypha is also included with the ESV. All right. Actually,
hold on. Let me give me 1 second. I'll be
go
right
ahead.
back.
Okay, Con. Actually, that's what actually inspired this class, because Ashire actually, you know, and I think that's where he's going to go get right now. He actually was like, Rata, you know that there's I believe it's second Esdras. He said there's more chapters in second Esdras that are not in the KJV but can be found in the ESV. And I was like, word? He was like, yeah. He was like, yeah, the ESV actually they actually were able to compile more chapters that are not found in the KJV for second Esdras. And I was like, we gotta tell the people this. Like, we gotta tell the people this. All right.
All right, so boom. So
You want me to stop sharing?
nah, I got them right here. So as you can tell, family, I got my
I'm
ESV
gonna
study.
stop sharing because I want the screen to be big for you so you can actually show them, because I don't have mine yet.
So what y'all can see here is the ESV study Bible. So this is one of, I would probably put this second in my toolbox, my biblical study toolbox, right? My first is definitely going to be the New King James Version Cultural Background Study Bible. I mentioned that on a lesson I did on the flood on the channel, right? The New King James Version Cultural Background Study Bible, right? I would say that's probably number one on my biblical toolbox, right? But this would probably be second, right? My ESV Study Bible. And as of recently, right, going through the ESV and just getting into that and the scholarship within. So a couple features, right? I'll just highlight a couple of features in here, right? So you got, I don't even know where to start. As far as perks of having this, I mean, from timelines to endless footnotes. I mean, let me see if I can pull one up real quick just to show you something quick, right? Let's go here. So we got Daniel. So you got Daniel here. And as you can see here, you got a diagram here going into the Maccabean kingdom here, right? Just in your footnotes here. And as you can see, you got endless scholastic footnotes here. I mean, it's endless. Like, I've never in my life ran. You got timelines here in Galatians. Break it down.
I'm low key mad too. Not to cut your wisdom. I'm mad I didn't bring my other King James paragraph study Bible, man, because it goes into detail like that too. And I wish I would have brought it, but I forgot to bring it. But yeah, I didn't want to cut your wisdom.
Yeah, it's got extensive intros to each book that you read. I know it's kind of backwards here, but extensive intros to each book. But nevertheless, right? Also, what the brother was just saying, I got this. This is the ESV Apocrypha.
Mm-hmm.
Right? ESV Apocrypha. Now, this is something worth
Yeah, that's
investing
cold.
in. I
Yeah,
would
that's
say
cold.
I don't want to give too much. I would just say, hey, if you want to grow,
Well, show them the pages, that the chapters that are not in the second Esdras KJV, that now through us having the arsenal that we have in resources, they were able to add.
So in your KJV second Esdras, one of the ones that's interesting to me is chapter 7. So it stops at verse 75 in your KJV because they didn't have extended manuscripts of second Esdras at the time. Again, at the time of the KJV being translated, they only had limited resources on manuscripts. They didn't have as many as we do now. We've discovered more manuscripts since King James. We have the Syriac Peshitta. We have the Aramaic scrolls. We have the Dead Sea Scrolls. They didn't have access to these things prior to the 80s. We just discovered these things here recently. So King James didn't have access to all of these resources, but nevertheless, right? When you look at 2nd Ezra chapter 7, it goes all the way to 115 verses, right? That give heavy insight into judgment, death, etc. Right?
That's 2nd Ezra, right?
Yeah, 2nd Ezra.
So it goes all the way to how many chapters?
Well, 116 verses.
116. Oh, added to what chapter?
7.
Yeah. So more verses added to chapter 7.
Yes.
Okay, con. Yeah. That's that. And so when the brother told me that, I was like, yeah. I was like, yeah.
And me and Rata walked through those verses and weighed them against the other precepts together. So I'm like, hey, our brother could seemingly reject these based on what it's saying. So let's line it up against other biblical foundational scriptures, right? Because the Apocrypha is considered deuterocanonical, meaning of secondary importance, right? You have your canon, which is your primary importance, which is the 80 books we got, and then you have deuterocanonical, which is considered secondary importance, right? In academia. So I wanted to put the deuterocanon up against the canon. So me and him walked through those extra verses and was like, hey, let's see if this lines up. And it lined up.
So yeah, also too. So let me share my screen now. So yeah, man, that right there was like, okay, that was mine. I was like, okay, I gotta get me. And if you can, Shire, you know what I mean? For the people that want, where did you get that one from?
Both of these I got from Amazon. So your ESV Apocrypha, your ESV Study Bible, both can be bought via Amazon. And they're both $20. Well, this is going to be like, I think I paid like $50-something, but this one was only like $23.
Yep. And it's funny because there is no NIV Apocrypha. You know what I mean? There is no NIV Apocrypha. You know what I mean? You know, that's something to consider. You know, but yeah, I'm definitely gonna cop that for sure. But let me show y'all something else too. That made me really like the ESV, you know. So let's go back to the PowerPoint. I'm about to wrap up here in a minute, family. Look at this. So key differences in readings with the KJV and the ESV. So in Acts chapter 12, verse 4, let's go to Acts chapter 12, verse 4 real quick.
Now we getting to now we getting.
Yeah, you know, I had to throw that in there.
Yes, because one thing I'm gonna go ahead and say it right. There's go ahead. I want to read a citation out of this source. Right, this is called a visual history of the King James Bible. Okay, I wanna read some of y'all real quick. The brother's already getting to it, but let me get this. Yeah, you go to bring that out. I'm finna get this real quick.
Yeah. So, like when you read this in Acts chapter 12, verse 4, right? So it says, let me see. So it says, and when he had apprehended him, he put him in prison and delivered him to the 4 quaternions of soldiers to keep him intending after Easter to bring him forth to the people. So here you'll see the word Easter here, right? So a Christian will come to you like, see, look at that. They did keep Easter, right? Of course, we know that word translates to Passover. So what you will have to do is you would have to literally go, right? You would have to literally go and show them with your biblical tools, your lexicon, that word Easter there is Passover. But if you go to it in the ESV, they make that correction and they keep it just Passover instead of having the word Easter there. You guys understand? So that's just giving you clarity of what it's really saying. Let me see. Let me 12 and 4. Let me see. ESV. Hold on, let me see. Yeah, so let me just get out of this real quick. So if you go to the ESV, let me show y'all. So
yeah,
when you
citation too.
Okay, hold on one second. So when you go to the blue letter, you go to the ESV and you go to Acts 12 and 4. And look at this. So it says, and when he had seized him, he put him in prison, delivering him over to the four squads of soldiers to guard him, intending after the Passover to bring him out to the people. So y'all see how the ESV has Passover there, but if you go to the KJV, it has Easter there. So the ESV just corrects that. Like, it's not Easter, it's the translation is supposed to properly read Passover. Y'all see that? So that's one example, you know, there of why I like the ESV, because it makes the seemingly correction to the seemingly contradictions in the text of the KJV, or the false doctrines that are in the quote unquote false doctrines that are in the KJV. It makes corrections to those, letting you know, even though you can still go to the language, you can see that the writers of the KJV intended it, or the interpreters of the KJV intended it to be Passover. The ESV gives a more direct approach to it, so you don't have to go to the roundabout to basically show your point. You want to say something?
So I wanted to point out the reason for this translation style was because of religious influence of the translators, right? So one interesting thing about this book that it goes into is it actually lists all of the names of the translators involved in the translation of the King James Bible, right? But one thing that stood out to me was this, right? This is on page 91. It says, these three men were John Harding, Edward Lively, and Lancelot Andrews. Andrews, an affable Anglican, became the chairman of the translation committee and the most influential of the translators. What does that mean, family? Do y'all know what an Anglican is? Let me share my screen real quick.
Oh, let me stop sharing my screen. Again, this is not saying the KJV is evil and none of that. We're not saying that. What we're saying is that it gives the with the comparative translations, right? The KJV with the ESV, you can get a more accurate read, right, of what the authors intended. But go ahead, I'm
gonna show my screen real quick. I'm gonna make it simple, right? So the chairman of the committee of the translation of the King James Bible was an Anglican, right? I'm sharing that. So Anglicanism, also known as Episcopalianism in some countries, is a Western Christian tradition which developed from the practices, liturgy, and identity of the Church of England following the English Reformation in the context of the Protestant Reformation in Europe. It is one of the largest branches of Christianity, with around 110 million adherents worldwide as of 2024. So what I want you to understand is that the translators of the KJV Bible were Christians, and their Christian bias shows up in the translation. And a brother just brought out one of them. Not saying that the KJV is evil, but you do see the bias in the way that they chose to translate certain words within the Bible in such as places like this. where they obviously see that it's Pesach, which means Passover. Why in the ham sandwich would they say Easter? Because they had Christian dogma and Christian biases that show up in the translation.
Yeah, so with comparative translation, now you can see, I mean, we could always go into the language and see that it was Passover there, right? But the point is, when you go to the ESV, it's very direct and straight to the point. It corrects that. It corrects that. That should be properly translated as Passover, not Easter. And that's just the facts, right? If we take our feelings and emotions out of it, I still love the KJV. I'm still gonna read it. That's still my go-to. But if we take the emotions out of it, it's supposed to say Passover there. Now, again, this is why I read the prologue in the beginning, right? In the beginning, I read the prologue for this particular purpose because, you know, no translation is perfect, right? But what we have is beautiful and it is spiritual because it's no way, it's no way that these words are preserved just by mere men, right? So nothing is perfect, right? We know that the scriptures say that. But what we can do is we could try to get as close to perfection as we can, leaning on the two critical texts that we have, which is the KJV and the ESV for our study, right? And for our learning, right? And we prove these things. Let's go ahead and get one more then. Something else that's controversial. All right. So y'all see also John 5, 7, and 8. KJV includes the Johannine Comma, right? Now I did a class on the comma, right? Now this has brought a lot of scrutiny, you know what I mean? Especially people that's against the KJV. They'll bring this out like, look, let's go there. 1 John 5 and 7 real quick. And matter of fact, let me just go there. 1 John. And we just got to be honest when it comes to this. In the KJV, hold on. So let's read it in the KJV. So a Christian will take you here and say, see, this is the Trinity, right? For you guys that don't know, the Johannine Comma, all right, or the Johannine Comma was not in most of the Greek and Latin manuscripts, right? It was only, it only could be traced back. You got to do some diligent tracing, but the comma is like it's like a footnote, really. It's not actually supposed to be, if I'm being unbiased from my studies, it's not actually supposed to be in the text, right?
All praise to the Most High. All praise to the highest.
Oh no, you funny.
Praise to the highest.
It's more like a I mean, that's the truth. It was more like a footnote, like a footnote. Now, not to say that, you can't break it down within the text to make it make sense, but just being unbiased, you will see that it's kind of like when you have like a study Bible and they give you like the they give you like the footnotes.
Yeah, or understanding of what is being said by something else, or an experiment on what something else is saying.
Exactly. So that's what the comma is. So I guess from my research over the years, the comma got integrated into actually being a part of the text when it really was just a footnote, right? I did a whole lesson on a comma, so we're not going to do that today, but I just want to show y'all that when you read this, so in John 5 and 7, for there are three that bear record in heaven, the Father, the Word, and the Holy Ghost, and these three are one, right? So when you see that, right, I believe the let's go to the ESV now. So somebody can pull this out and say, see, look at that. There's three that bear witness in heaven. The Father.
The Trinitarian foundation.
Trinitarian view. Yes. Now, again, I could break this down in a word and show you that this don't have nothing to do with no Trinity. This doesn't say anything about a Trinity, but this gives a Christian more credence to be able to say this is the Trinity, even though this has nothing to do with the Trinity, even if I kept it there in my perspective. But when you go to the ESV makes this correction. Look at this. It's not there.
Mm-hmm.
For there are three that testify, the spirit and the water and the blood, for these three agree. You don't see the Son. What was it more specifically?
There are three that bear record in heaven.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't see it there.
The footnote.
You don't see it there. And that's just the truth. You know what I mean? That's just the truth. You don't see it there, but you see the ESV makes that correction and removes that. It removes the comma, right? Which is the reference to the Holy Spirit, the Son, right? And the Father. All right. So, you know, those are just some of the things that you can see that the ESV makes corrections to, right? Let's go back to the PowerPoint. So let's get some more. I want to actually go to, all right, look at this. We also have situations like this. Now you'll have a Muslim pull this out on you, right? Go to go to 2 Kings 8:26. So I seen a Muslim pull this out. Lob actually sent me a video. He was like, your Holy Bible doesn't have errors in it. It doesn't have errors, and yeah, it's not perfect. And you see this? Why is Isaiah 22 here and he's 42 here? It's a contradiction. Older than the Father? You see, let's read that. Go to 2 Kings 8:26. All right. Again, that's why I read the prologue, because I was preferencing you guys, prepping you guys to get ready, because the truth is, you know, there's no translation that's just going to be 100% perfect, but we can get better. And the ESV, in my opinion, has corrected a lot of the little nuances that you can find in the KJV, quote unquote, right? So let's get that in 2 Kings 8:26.
In 2 Kings 8:26, it says, 22 years old was Ahaziah when he began to reign, and he reigned 1 year in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Athaliah, the daughter of Omri, king of Israel.
All right, so how old was he?
22.
He was 22 right here, right? Now let's go to 2 Chronicles 22:2. And again, this is not taking away from the actual point of the story of what's happening, but it is a mistake. So let's go to 2 Chronicles real quick. Grammar errors, right? Interpretation errors. 2 Chronicles 22:2. Man, I came a long way, bro. You wouldn't have got me to do this type of lesson back in the day.
Right.
Boy, I would have
clapping it up. I said that's why I'm over here clapping it up.
I mean, it's the truth though. It's the truth. But like I said, the KJV is still my primary go-to, but I'm adding the ESV with that, right? So 2 Chronicles 22:2.
In 2 Chronicles chapter 22:2, it says, 42 years old was Ahaziah when he began to reign, and he reigned 1 year in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Athaliah, the daughter of Omri.
See that? So you got 22 here. 42 here. You got 22 prior. Okay. 22 years, 42 years. It's that simple. Now, when you go to let's go to the ESV now. 2 Kings. Let me stop sharing this. 2 Kings 8:26. Yeah, in the ESV. It was 8:26, right?
Yeah.
So here it is right here. It says Isaiah was 22 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 1 year in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Athaliah. She was a granddaughter of Omri, king of Israel, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I believe that was what?
2 Chronicles 22:2.
2 Chronicles what?
22:2.
All right, here it is right here. Uzziah was 22 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 1 year in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Adaliah, the granddaughter of Omi. So they make a correction there.
Click
So they go ahead.
Click the FN, the footnote next to 22.
Okay. Yes.
See Hebrew 42, Septuagint 22. So they were reconciling the textual nuances from the original manuscripts, right? They saw it don't make sense in one place for his brother to be 42, older than his dad, right at the time of his reign. So through reasoning and all the text we have now, the ESV came to that decision. Okay, 22 makes sense based on the textual nuances that we have, because if we leave it to the KJV, now we're getting stabbed spiritually by a Muslim. How is your king 42 in one place and 22 in another? That's a direct contradiction, plainly, right? But it's because they didn't have the amount of manuscript evidence that we have now to make these decisions.
And that's and I wanted to that point, not to cut your wisdom, because I see Abigail is asking, I need more info on how the ESV came about, though. Khan, what the ESV is trying to do, or how the ESV came about, right? It's basically coming from the KJV, but with more resources attached to it. So as Ashai was going into, when you read the Septuagint, it gives you that correction of Uzziah actually being 22 years, right? Not 42. So the KJV didn't have the amount of manuscripts that we have today, that we like the Dead Sea Scrolls. Like let me go back to this PowerPoint real quick for an example. Let's go down real quick. Did I put it in here? Oh no, I think we went over it already. Let me see. Here it is right here. So like the KJV comes from the Masoretic, the Textus Receptus, right? But the ESV comes from the Masoretic, Dead Sea Scrolls, and the Septuagint, right? And the Nestel Alad, which is another Greek text, right? So the ESV came about basically. Matter of fact, Ashire, can you read your preference now? Yeah. Read your preference. Yeah. Give a little bit of history on that.
So I read my preface. Hey, read the preface of your books, family. It'll give you insight. It'll answer the questions you have, right? So I'm gonna go to the portion of the preface where it talks about textual basis and resources, right? So this is in the preface. Textual basis and resources.
Just read a little bit of it too.
Yeah, I'm reading the short portion, just for her, based on the manuscript. So this is under textual basis and resources. The ESV is based on the Masoretic text of the Hebrew Bible as found in Biblia Hebraica Stuttgart Tenzia, the 5th edition in 1997, and on the Greek text in the 2014 editions of the Greek New Testament, 5th corrected edition, published by the United Bible Societies, the UBS, and Novum Testamentum Graece, 28th edition, 2012, edited by Nessel and Allen. The currently renewed respect among Old Testament scholars for the Masoretic text is reflected in the ESV's attempt, wherever possible, to translate difficult Hebrew passages as they stand in the Masoretic text, rather than resorting to emendations or to finding an alternative reading in the ancient versions. In exceptional difficult cases, the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Septuagint, the Samaritan Pentateuch, the Syriac Peshitta, the Latin Vulgate, and other sources were consulted to shed possible light on the text, or, if necessary, to support a divergence from the Masoretic text. Similarly, in a few difficult cases in the New Testament, the ESV has followed a Greek text different from the text given preference in the UBS Nessel Allen 20th edition. Throughout, the translation team has benefited greatly from the massive textual resources that have become readily available recently, from new insights into biblical laws and culture, and from current advances in Hebrew and Greek lexicography and grammatical understanding.
It's a scholarly work, man. Hey, Lael put a so yeah, it basically it's a revision. It's basic. I wanted you to read the part where it gives credit to the KJV
Oh yeah, I'll
too.
read that. That's the first
Yeah,
portion.
yeah, read that, and then we gonna get this point too, because brother Lael, either Zakar or Lael, I don't know which one it is, but had made reference like John 3:16 in the ESV. If you look at the footnotes, it makes it clear it's about Israel.
Plainly.
See what I'm saying? The ESV is making corrections to a lot of dogma that Christianity put. We're gonna get that after you read this, dog, because I really want everybody to understand that the ESV is not taking shot at the KJV. It's it's confirming it. Right? Go ahead.
Khan, this is the first page of the preface, the Bible. It says, "This book is the most valuable thing that this world affords. Here is wisdom. This is the royal law. These are the lively oracles of God." With these words, the moderator of the Church of Scotland hands a Bible to the new monarch in Britain's coronation service. These words echo the King James Bible translators who wrote in 1611 God's sacred word is that inestimable treasure that excelleth all the riches of the earth. This assessment of the Bible is the motivating force behind the publication of the English Standard Version.
Y'all see that?
So the King James Version motivated the translation of the ESV. So pretty much the KJV is the foundational manuscript and Bible translation for the ESV. For the people who, have a intimate relationship with the KJV. It's not taking shots at it or some completely polar opposite. It's actually, like I said, a great analogy is it's the son who grew up to be better than dad because dad gave him all the resources that he had and then he took off with
them. Yep. All praises. See that? So yeah, man. I don't want nobody to think that this is us taking aim at the KJV. It's not. But we have to be honest. Like, there are mistakes, and we could keep going all night. We've been on for 2 hours, but I just want to let everybody know that, the comparative translations that I hold to at this point in this present time is the KJV and the ESV, right? So I'm a be holding to those two. You know what I mean? And I believe that the Most High Spirit was behind those two. You know what I mean? And I think we can show that through the historical evidence and the scriptural evidence. You know what I mean? Like I said, we got way more information now than they had, than that King James had. With the Dead Sea Scrolls, et cetera, et cetera. So all praises to the Most High, man. So we BOW, we hold to now. That's not to say you can't read other translations or whatever. I know brothers, they read G&T, and some brothers read stuff like that. But I'm saying what I'm holding to as my authoritative translation is the KJV and the ESV. You know what I mean? So yeah, do your research on it. Look it up. All right. John 3:16 in the ESV. Zakar Lael. Let's get that real quick, because I looked at it. Let me see.
I think it might be.
Am I sharing my screen?
Nah, not yet.
Okay.
Let's see what they're talking. But I think the footnote might be in the actual book. Let me see that.
Yeah, I don't think it's because it's not showing in the blue letter. What it say in the book? The footnote in the blue letter just says, or for this is how God loved the world.
Oh yeah, it's in the study Bible, right? So this is the footnote for John 3:16. It says here is
okay, hold on 1 second. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. So you actually gotta see it in your actual, it's not in the blue letter, but it's in
it's actually in the footnote in the study Bible, right? So it says here's the most famous summary of the gospel in the entire Bible. 4 connects to verse 15 and explains what happened to make it possible that someone can have eternal life. That is through believing in Christ. God so loved the world was an astounding statement in that context because the Old Testament and other Jewish writers have spoken only of God's love for his people, Israel. So it's connecting that world to the children of Israel in the Old Testament, showing a connection between the two.
And you can find that in your actual study Bible for the footnote. Yeah, man. There you have it. You know what I mean? There you have it. There you have it. There you have it. All praises. Get a most high hand clap. All praises, man. Put some hand claps in the chat. Put some hand claps in the chat. All praises, man. Yeah, the ESV is cold, man. I'm leaning to that, and I'm leaning to the KJV. The two translations that I go to, my two go-tos is the KJV and the ESV. You want to say something else?
Yeah. One other tool, right, which I believe is the ultimate tool, is this right here. Ain't gonna lie. Because I love the ESV and the KJV both for their reading, but if you really want to get to the nitty-gritty of what's going on, we bring this up all the time, but it's so many tools within this one site. Let me show my screen. Because again, all of these things are translations and subject to error. Footnotes, subject to interpretation. All of these things, right? But one thing that's not gonna lie is, hold on, select you. Is this right here, the Hebrew and the Greek. It ain't gonna lie to you. You understand? This ain't gonna lie.
But this is advanced. So yeah, I don't want to get too advanced. Yeah, this is advanced.
No, I just wanted for the record.
Yeah,
I just wanted for the record. This ain't gonna lie. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashemayim wa et haaretz. This is not gonna lie. The Hebrew is not gonna lie to you. Okay. So I just wanted this for the record, right? We just talking about, translations that we love now and that we feel we can use for doctrine. But when it comes to ultimate tools, that interlinear and that Hebrew and that Greek is not gonna lie to you. And I'll yield on that.
Always go, and this is why now go back there. Go back.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
And this is why I like the ESV though, because the ESV leans more as a literal translation to the Hebrew and to the Greek. Like for an example, Passover, it's not Easter there. It's literally translated as Passover. It's literally Passover. So that's why I love the ESV for that. You know what I mean? It gets all the, it's just so straight to the point. You know what I mean? Let me share that. So, but yeah, this is advanced. You know what I mean? But the ESV and the KJV together can get you to this point of where he's speaking about. Does everybody understand? So I don't want to confuse nobody, but yes, he is right. The Hebrew and the Greek, that's where you want to go for sure. But the Most High translated everything in our language that we can understand it. So the best translations that I see in the English would be the KJV and the ESV for my studies.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So so that's pretty much it, man. So all praises, man. All praises. We love y'all. We've been on for about 2 hours. Go back, take notes, watch class, and you know what I mean? I guess we know more KJV onlys. I used to be a KJV only, you know what I mean? But I did. I ain't gonna hold you. I did. Yeah. But now the ESV, it's proven itself, man. So all praises. We love y'all. We'll be back tomorrow for another class. And until next time, shalom. Y'all join us tomorrow, 4:30. If anybody got any questions, you can email us. Sorry if we take a while to get back. We'd be busy, but please email us, and then we'll get to you guys as quick as we can. We get a lot of emails, but come back and support class tomorrow at 4:30. All right, 4:30. Shalom, family. Sister Leah, yeah, sure, sis. You can hit me tomorrow. Hit me tomorrow. And then we can chop it up. All right, for sure. All right, love y'all, and until tomorrow, 4:30. We'll see y'all later. Shalom.